Hi guys, thanks for coming. It's good to see everyone again. I missed the last one and Eva took it. So it's been about 2 months since I've been in the chair, which is a long time considering we do it monthly. For the new people that are here, Startup Grind runs in over 200 cities now around the world, aimed at educating, inspiring and connecting local founders. So let me just find everything. So before we kick off, we're going to give Carl a round of applause for coming and talking to us tonight. And as we always do, we always start with asking you what you wanted to be when you grew up and where you grew up, and really start at the beginning.
Okay. Hi guys. I'm Carl. I grew up in Whangaproa. Basically grew up on the beach up there. Raced powerboats. What I wanted to be when I was older, it was actually quite a period there where I wanted to be a chef. Then I realised the hours they work, and that very quickly kind of dissipated. Then I was actually about 16, and I always loved art. Art was one of pretty much the only things I was good at school. And so I knew it was going to be in that direction. I loved technology at the time. The web was still very new, and I'm showing my age. And so I actually applied for media design school, and I went in there and had a meeting with the CEO there, and he generally does all the interviews prior to coming in. But I was a bit different because I was like 16 at the time. When it started, I'd be 17, and I would be the youngest they'd ever taken on, and he was pretty impressed. And so yeah, I went to media design school to learn web design or new media, CD-ROM design. stuff like that. And that was in 2001, and I was 17. Yeah.
So where did you progress from there? What was your first official job?
I actually, like halfway through my course, I got a part-time job at a web design firm. So I was going to like 5 o'clock in the morning, leaving Whangaproa, getting on the bus, going to school. I've always been the person who goes to work. I'm the one who like turns on all the computers, like always last to leave, and I just don't understand why anyone wouldn't do that. I don't know, but so I get in there at like 7 o'clock in the middle of the city, then have to drive to Albany after tech, and yeah, work building websites for a company over there. Finished up there, worked at Quicken New Zealand, so a software company. So they do Reckon software, so all the QuickBooks and Quicken. They do Ace payroll. They do all sorts of bits and pieces. So that was really interesting, like going into there, and my experience there becomes relevant later as well. Yeah, so I was sort of doing technical support. I was using an accounting software that I barely know, telling accountants how to use the software. They don't know how. I'd never done like accounting before, so that was really interesting. And so I was doing technical support there, etc., building the websites and stuff, and doing a bit of marketing and stuff at Quicken for a while.
And then so you went from there and started your own clothing brand completely.
So there's quite a few years of web development. So I worked for someone my entire life so far. I've worked for someone for 2 years. That was at Quicken. Then I left, worked for myself, built websites and stuff. Yeah. Then I started the clothing label. So I found a bit of a gap in the market. I couldn't find sort of t-shirts I wanted. So like standard, start a clothing label, start with t-shirts. We had some really cool designs. We put 30 odd t-shirts up in like Texas Radio. He just like took a punt on us. They sold out like a day. So it kind of rolled on from there. Learned a lot about sales doing that, learned a lot about debt collection doing that. Don't want to go back in the fashion industry ever again. But I also learned that the difficulties in actually running a business like that, and like there are a lot of people out there, and probably a lot of you guys as well, start businesses because you're passionate about one thing, and you spend your entire time in spreadsheets. It's heartbreaking. So
is that what I was going to say? How did you go from that to knowing that you wanted to start your own business? Was there a point where you were like, oh, I can't work for anyone else ever again, or was it?
No, I think it's more out of necessity because I never want to work for anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like I want to work with people I want to work with, and so I need to choose them, not my boss or whoever.
Yeah.
I like smart people. I can't stand stupid people. So yeah, it makes it very. It wasn't really a decision.
Okay. All right. And then from there, how did TradeGecko come about? What was tell us about the real origins.
So after, I think it was about 2007, the global financial crisis, I was doing more debt collection than anyone can handle. So I threw away that crowded elevator, the clothing label, moved into web design for a little bit. We started working with Cam, the CEO of TradeGecko, my co-founder. We worked on a few projects together, decided we needed to do a startup. We very quickly saw that, because we tried to get immersed in the startup community in Auckland, which at the time consisted of about 20 people. Their startup weekend was in their first one. I think Jason just started that up. It was nothing. The community now is massive, but back then it was just nothing. And there were no incubators, there were no government support, there was nothing. Startup was not a cool word. And actually one of the main drivers of going overseas as well, we looked around, there was no incubators here. So we applied for one in Sydney. Even though it didn't say for Australians only, we were like, well, why wouldn't they take Kiwis on? It's so easy. Sure enough, they don't like Kiwis. So we applied for one in Singapore. And so the one in Singapore got back to us. They were actively pulling together an international team, a group of startups. It was backed by Singtel, which is the big corporate telecommunications over there. And so I think we got a call on Christmas Eve in December 11. And in 3 weeks, we were flying over to Singapore.
So just to back up a little bit then, for people that don't know the sort of full story of the company, when was it that you decided on inventory? Where did the idea and everything come about? Was it? Yeah.
So okay, we'll get there. So we jumped over to Singapore. We got into this incubator. It's called JFDI, which is the acronym for Just Fucking Do It. And that was fantastic. It was a 100-day boot camp. At the start, we had a mobile application. By the end of it, we had pivoted completely. I mean threw it away and started again twice. Because that whole incubation period is all about customer development, right? You need to prove that this is actually going to work. If it's not going to work, then why the fuck would you do it? And we weren't holding on to one specific thing that we wanted to do, because we wanted to make a company that would work, not that product, even though no one wanted it. We had an awesome idea. We had people even calling up a year later asking for it, but there was some business model issues that we could not get past. So we threw that away. TradeGecko then came about because it was something tangible to that. It also put into, I said, well, why don't we go back and think about the original idea of the issues that I was having as a wholesaler with my clothing label. So it was really about inventory and order management. So that's where TradeGecko came about. TradeGecko is an inventory and order management system for wholesale businesses. Essentially, we are the back end that connects businesses to their retail stores, etc. So orders, inventory, purchase orders, supply lines, connecting it to the website for customer orders, your sales reps on the road with mobile apps, all this sort of stuff. It's basically SAP for SMEs. Yeah.
So validating that business model then, so you scrapped up that one. How did you guys decide, right, TradeGecko is the one?
Yeah, so I mean that 100-day boot camp, and I think it's a really good model for anyone, even if you're not in an incubator. Be like, okay, we've got 100 days. We're gonna prove this, and the whole point is to just go out and talk to customers. And it's one thing that people just very easily kind of accidentally go around because it's awkward. And it's not about talking to your friends and family and stuff like that, as I'm sure most of you know. It's, get Lean Startup book from Eric Ries and work through that customer development and just be sure that it's very, very clear on what you're doing. Create those 10 questions. Go out and talk to your customers in a non-leading way about what their problems are, how they're trying to solve it, all this kind of stuff. And it becomes, after a while, it becomes very clear because you see the same answer being repeated. And then it gets really cool when you tell them afterwards what you're doing and they go, holy shit, I'll give you money now, I want this. So that's when we knew we were onto something. I was up at, first of all, we started to talk to Singaporean businesses. Now, Singaporean businesses culturally are very, very different. So we realized that this is not working so well and this is potentially not our market. So we need to look at Australia, New Zealand, America, etc. People that are more business savvy to what we were offering. So I was literally going into JFDI at 2:00 in the morning to call random New York companies and go through the customer development cycle. And that's what we did. And that's how we got our sort of first American customers on, stuff like that.
I was going to ask how you got your first customers on board, but that...
Pretty much all friends.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, we were pushed, like, by the end of the 100 days, that 100 days was just completely based on customer development. Like, we had no product by the end of it. We had some screenshots, a dream, and a story. And we managed to sell it for like $1 million. You could not do that in New Zealand, especially not back then. And after that, we very quickly had to get on some customers to prove that what we were doing wasn't just smoke and mirrors, although it was. So we were literally calling friends who I knew had a clothing label or whatnot, and be like, can you please just start an AP with us, please? And so sure enough, we slowly got people on. Actually, I caught up with one of my friends the other day. He's still using TradeGecko to this day, and he's still on the like $10 a month we started him on. He's like, don't tell anyone.
So how did you? So you arrived at a viable business solution. You started to build the product. You got friends and family on there first.
Yeah.
At what point did you leave the incubator with investment?
Yeah, so it's kind of like Lightning Labs. You do the 100 days, you stand up in front of a room full of investors, and you go through the fine print afterwards. So and it takes twice as long what you think. And not only that, once you get the money, there's all sorts of stuff. In hindsight, we could have structured it, differently, etc. But I mean, Singapore's just got so much money out there. It's ridiculous. The government backs their investors 5-1. New Zealand's just started doing 1-1 now, right? So that's good. But so we got the money, started. We got an office. Actually, we're working from our main investor, Wavemaker. We started working out of their office. They were trying to pull together this like collaborative space. It was so horrible. Designed by some bankers. So So we were working out of there for a while because it was free, and the money started rolling in and all that kind of stuff, and we obviously started working more and more on the product. It took us, we were working on it for, I think it's about a year and a half before we hit like product market fit. And that was after we worked out what we wanted to do. We knew that this was a thing. It was just that big. And I don't think we realized how much functionality something like that needed to actually be usable for people, for our market. And even to this day, there's just the roadmap is still endless. It's just endless.
So you went the typical route of you kind of launched with an MVP and then built out features based on customers from then, or?
Yeah, so and that's one thing I really learned at doing TradeGecko is everything we did was very customer centric. We right from the start, we listened to our customers, we asked them what they wanted. Everything we did, and we had this kind of mentality that no one's right in the company. No one's right until proven otherwise. Like, you have to prove that what you want to do is worth doing. Like, even going from a 30-day trial down to 14-day trial seems like a no-brainer. Most people would go, oh yeah, we'll just do it. It's like, no, like, we have to prove that is the right thing to do.
How did you validate ideas like that?
Well, some things just come down to research. Other things, we were talking to other companies like Vend, like Xero, and people like that, and being like, just getting feedback, getting advice, like what works for you, what didn't, and all this kind of stuff. Then matching that up with 3 or 4 of them and going, okay, yeah, no, that is a good idea. We should definitely do that. It's working for them.
So how much with the you left the incubator, you got investment from that. That was your seed round. How much was in the seed round? And then when did you go for your next round of investment?
I think it was about $1 million Kiwi. And in like hindsight, 2020 hindsight, it's probably too much. It put us in it was either too much or we spent it too fast. Because you always spend it too fast. But it just meant that we had to hit bigger numbers to get an A round than what we would have if we could taken smaller. But saying that TradeGecko was a bit of a unique position, it just took so long to get to product market fit. We needed that time.
So that was the next question I was going to ask was like, what were your kind of key metrics that you guys followed? And what did investors, what was the key metric they were looking for as well?
Oh my God, half the numbers are just made up. It's so hard. Like, honestly, it's very easy to get, analytics paralysis. Like, marketing, like, my role in the company was the customer side of things. So everything customer facing was me. From brand, marketing, website, customer support, sales. Like, I set up sort of the initial stages of everything there. Bradley, the co-founder, Bradley and Cameron brothers. Bradley was head of development, and Cameron was CEO, which is basically just paperwork and talking to investors. And
which is definitely a full-time role in itself.
Yeah, and vision and all that kind of stuff, and we work together on all that. But the marketing, even now with BroPro, it's so hard to tell where people are coming from and what's working. Like, you get a feel for it, but to actually like have a number which correlates to that is really hard. Yeah.
So when you guys were out in the market then, obviously with TradeGecko, you said it took about 1.5 years to get product market fit. But what were the kind of major hurdles in getting there? What and how did you overcome those along the way?
I think one of the major hurdles for most startups in that position is the frustration. because I mean we have no idea what we're doing. All we're doing is testing stuff, and it gets really frustrating when you're like, wow, everything looks amazing. Why aren't people buying this? And you start to kind of, turning on each other and questioning things, and it gets really frustrating. But I think for us, we were fortunate enough we didn't have anywhere else. Like, we lived together, we worked together, we're in each other's head 24/7, which also probably wasn't great in a lot of ways, but in a sense it's like family. Like, yeah, you fight with them, but you know that you're just going to get on and move past it. So, I mean, and the three of us are very practical people, but I think it's the frustration that can really kill a team and essentially a startup.
Because I mean, we've had people on, like Paul Spence, for instance, and other people on, like we've spoken about it before as well. Is like the level of stress and the everything else that kind of comes along with it is hard to deal with. I couldn't imagine what it would be like living in Singapore with your co-founders, dealing with that as well. Like,
not only that, like in Singapore, you basically can't live without an EP plus, an employment pass. So we could own a business in Singapore, but we couldn't afford to pay ourselves. Therefore, we couldn't give ourselves an EP pass. Therefore, without the EP pass, we can't even get SIM cards. We can't get rent. We can't get utilities. We were living like, paying cash to some woman who rents out bedrooms. It was terrible. It was awful.
How did you deal with the stress? Like, what was the?
I had 2 small burnouts.
Yeah.
I've had one before. I know what they feel like. They're not good. So we were literally working 18 to 20 hour days at some of that point, doing the customer work and stuff. I felt stuff coming on, and I would just take time out. I'd just be like, I just have to drop everything and walk out and just sit and do nothing for a while. Like,
I was going to say, in hindsight then, like, is there anything you did differently in terms of approaching to how to not get burnout, or is it something that you're still kind of figuring out? Like,
hell yeah, I think like because like I've done it, even with BroPro now. So the next startup I'm working on is called BroPro. It's a video editing service for GoPro users. So you just upload your footage, we send you back a video within 24 hours. We take out the video part, the editing part. So doing this is just so much more easier. It's so much easier because I know I'm not frustrated. Like, I know that inbound marketing works, and I know that it just takes time and not to get frustrated at it. I know that, there's certain things we can do on social that work, that we don't have to get frustrated at now because they work down the track. I know that you can do lots of different marketing, but there's no silver bullet, and it just takes consistency and time to reach that tipping point.
Because most people, I mean, it's the second startup that people feel a little bit more comfortable in almost totally. Like that they not know what they're doing, because I'm not sure that ever happens, but like you feel a bit more comfortable with being out of control of stuff. But I mean, most people end up going through a massive failure before they get to their second startup and quite happy with it. It was obviously hugely successful. TradeGecko is still running now.
I think one of the key points with TradeGecko and why it was successful is that we didn't hold on to any ideas. We were passionate about solving the problem. We didn't fight with each other on like having to keep something for the sake of it because we wanted it there, or we wanted the website to look this way. Everything got tested and changed. We either tested it with talking to customers, we tested, a lot of my job was just testing the website. We use Visual Website Optimizer to test everything on the website to get their conversion rates up. One wording on buttons. We did 10 different wording on the hero button, one of them came out 30% more click-throughs than the others. 30%. And it was just like, start trial now. Like, it seems to be like the direct stuff works the best.
Yeah. And so obviously then we kind of moved on from a little bit, but what was your reason for exiting? Like, what was it? Did you just feel like now is the time to go on and do other things? Or?
For me, moving on from TradeGecko was obviously a massive decision. But I just got to a point that I couldn't live in Singapore anymore. It just was not me after 2 years. And I moved back for personal reasons. So I actually left halfway through my vesting. So that was a bit, that's a big deal. So far I've given up millions of dollars to be here. I don't think I have any regret, because I know that it was the right thing to do. But at the same time, I still keep in very close contact with what's going on in TradeGecko, and they still struggle to find the right marketer and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there going, oh God, I wish I could just be over there and fix this. But I made my bed.
So we've moving on from that. So moving on to BroPro, what's the kind of vision for that? Do you see moving into more of a product kind of platform, or?
Yeah, BroPro is really interesting. And when I moved back from TradeGecko, I was like, I am done. I'm never working in a startup again. Months later, I'm back. I don't know. I'm a sucker. I'm an absolute sucker for solving problems and being creative. That's what I love about startups is and this is why I don't work for anyone, because you have complete control, to be creative. And I really love BroPro because we get to deal with adventurers and sports people and all this kind of stuff. And I love the idea that BroPro can help inspire others to get out and go hiking and all this kind of stuff.
So looking back at kind of the whole experience then, and obviously there's a majority, I think, of people here have launched a startup or are close to launching one or looking to get into one. What would you say your kind of biggest learning experience from TradeGecko was, and advice that you pass on to everyone?
So there's two things that I'm kind of on at the moment that I'm preaching. Customer development. So many people just don't do it or don't do it properly. You cannot hold on to an idea. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Go and prove that this thing, is 100%. Because if it's not, there's no point doing it. And I think that's what people struggle, because they've got wound up. They've got this great idea. They're so passionate about it. They really want it to work so much that they'll subconsciously avoid the customer development because they know that it's not. I don't know. So you can't hold on to your ideas. Prove it, test it.
I think a lot of the time people get bought into their vision, solving the problem, rather than solving the problem. And it is tough. Obviously, you have to talk to your customers and stuff like that. But there's a level of a lot of people think, I can't get hung up on one or two bad things. But was there a defining metric for you guys, or?
No, it literally just got to a point where, and when we went out, we started talking, like I said, to Singaporean companies, and it was really disheartening because they were like, no, never use anything like that, blah, blah, blah. But then that we very quickly became aware that wasn't our market. So by doing customer development, we worked out where our market was, and we also worked out what they wanted, and how they wanted it. So that's really, really important. The other thing that, in hindsight, I wish we took more from or kept with was values and purpose. So, and I'm really big on this. I don't know if anyone's seen the Simon Sinek Start With Why, and that really kind of rung home with me as I sort of thought more and more about it. But it's just totally bang on. The brands and products and so forth that you resonate with, it's almost like a friend. A brand has a personality, and a brand can be a friend, and your friends generally have the same ethos, the same values as you do in life. They might have the same purpose or the same direction and so forth. So I think it's really, really important that as a startup you really create that purpose from the start. Know why you exist, what you're trying to achieve, and the values you have. Because if you don't have that, a lot of things fall apart. So, for example, BroPro is all about inspiring others, inspiring others to get out and see their world, basically. The way we do that is by empowering the adventurers to create videos. So I love that. I love the idea of creating this community of adventure seekers that can empower a wider audience. So that's kind of, that's that purpose. And then everything else kind of falls around that. All our marketing falls around that purpose. And also culture. No one now, millennials especially, do not want to work at a company that doesn't have a bigger purpose. So taking that purpose of why your company exists, what you're doing in the world, and bringing it through not only your marketing but your internal culture is immensely important. And it's something that we lost somewhere along the way with TradeGecko, and they've really been working on bringing that back in the last 12 months.
Any reason why you think that was, or just?
An experience, and more than anything, it's just caused some issues that were then like, oh right, that's because that isn't strong enough, and so definitely, and I see it more and more, and especially if you're businesses that are wanting to get funding, investors are looking for integrity and purpose and meaning. It's all great stuff.
Would you advise people going the route that you took and going outside of New Zealand for investment?
We went outside of New Zealand at the time because at the time there was nothing in New Zealand. We met up with a couple of investors. We were very disheartened by what they were telling us, and we thought that there is literally no investment money here for startups at that time. It's very much changed. I think New Zealand's the community has become a lot more mature, or actually probably less mature. There's a lot more younger money coming in with people that have actually done a startup and know what it takes, and know the valuations and so forth. But I definitely think that with the support in the ecosystem now, there's no reason you have to go overseas.
And you guys obviously thought pretty global from the start as well.
I think that's a really important part that any New Zealand startup needs to focus on. For me, I don't know why someone would do a startup that isn't the biggest thing they could possibly do. And that is go global, obviously.
From day one?
Yeah, from day one. New Zealand can be a great testing bed, and you can market to New Zealanders and have that vertical, but you have to have that plan to go global. It has to be global from the start.
Cool. Is there any other advice, obviously outside than that, but for people that haven't yet kind of found that, that are maybe in a startup that haven't found product market fit yet, how long, obviously you said it took you guys a year and a half, how long do you keep trucking away at something before it's like, Or is there never a point?
Look, that's a hard question, but I think that essentially it's a problem that any problem can be solved. If it's not working, you test other stuff, test dramatic stuff, test small stuff, test new markets, like make it work. If you're holding on to your ideas, that's when it's not going to work. That's when everything's just going to continually not go okay because you're not taking big enough risks. If it's not working, change it, test it.
Cool. I think we'll open it up to the audience now if anyone's got any questions. Yeah.
On that